हरि ओम। ओम श्री गणेशाय नमः। ओम श्री हिरण्यगर्भाय नमः। ओम श्री महाविष्णवे नमः। ओम श्री महादेवाय नमः। ओम श्री महादुर्गाये नमः। ओम श्री राम रामाय नमः। ओम श्री सद्गुरवे नमः। ओम समस्त जन कल्याणे निरतं करुणामयम् नमामि चिन्मयं देवं सद्गुरुं ब्रह्मविद्वरम् शंकरं शंकराचार्यं केशवं बादरायणं सूत्रभाष्यकृतौ वन्दे भगवन्तौ पुनः पुनः। श्रुतिस्मृतिपुराणानामालयं करुणालयं नमामि भगवत्पादशङ्करं लोकशङ्करम्। सदाशिवसमारम्भां शङ्कराचार्यमध्यमाम् अस्मदाचार्यपर्यन्तां वन्दे गुरुपरम्पराम्। ईश्वरो गुरुरात्मेति मूर्तिभेदविभागिने व्योमवद्व्याप्तदेहाय दक्षिणामूर्तये नमः। शङ्करं परमानन्दं ब्रह्मनिष्ठं यतीश्वरम् भाष्यभ्रान्तिहरं वन्दे शुद्धज्ञानैकबोधकम्। ओम नमः शिवाय। 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 नमः पार्वती पतये। हर हर महादेव। हरि ओम। हरि ओम। We'll begin with the Shanti mantra. ओम वांग में मनसि प्रतिष्ठिता मनो में वाचि प्रतिष्ठितम् आविराविर्मयेधि वेदस्य मानीस्तः श्रुतं मे मा प्रहासीः अनेनाधीतेनाहोरात्रान् सन्दधामि ऋतं वदिष्यामि सत्यं वदिष्यामि तन्मामवतु तद्वक्तारमवतु अवतु माम् अवतु वक्तारम् अवतु वक्तारम्। ओम शांति शांति शांतिः। हरि ओम। We shall chant the 12th mantra of the first chapter and third section. सएतमेव सीमानं विदार्य एतया सएतमेव सीमानं विदार्य एतया द्वारा प्रापद्यत शैषा विद्रुतिर्नाम द्वाहा तदेतत् नान्दनम् Tasya traya avasathaha traya swapnaha ayam avasatho ayam avasathaha iti. So Atma alone was in the beginning, and from that Atma alone, the entire creation came into manifestation. So first, the lokas were created, then the various lokapalas, and also the anna, food for all beings, were created. Then Ishvara thought that how can all this exist without me? I should also be present in this creation. So he entered the creation, he entered all beings. So a human being, that Ishvara alone entered us as us. Sa etam eva simanam vidarya. So from the opening on top of the head, Ishvara entered, and this opening is called Vidruti. It is also Nandanam, giver of bliss. When one exits from this door, then one attains that moksha, attains oneness with Ishvara, gains that supreme bliss. Therefore, it is called Anandanam. Tasya traya avasathaha. There are three residences of that Ishvara in this body. In the waking state, Ishvara resides in our right eye. In the dream state, he resides in our mind. And in the deep sleep state, he resides in our heart. In the heart. So these are the three residences. And these are also, the three states are also indicated as swapna, because ignorance is common in all the three states. Ignorance of the self is common in all the three states. So I am that Ishvara alone who has ignorance about my own Ishvara Swarupa. So I am as though asleep in this nidra of ignorance, in the sleep of ignorance from the beginningless time. Even after experiencing lots of sorrow, pain, suffering, I don't wake up. I continue to indulge in various pleasures of this world with the hope that they will give me eternal bliss. I keep trying to protect this body with the hope that I can live eternally. I keep acquiring knowledge with the hope that I will know everything. I will become Sarvajna. But all this remains as hope only. So I continue to be born in this world in different life forms according to my karma. Also, I keep going to various lokas and experiencing the joys and sorrows in those lokas. So, this constant taking birth and dying, and again taking birth, is samsara. It is filled with sorrow, with suffering, and it goes on and on and on. All our efforts to become happy goes in vain. So that is our condition now. Through this beautiful way of presenting this knowledge, that Ishvara, after creating the entire creation, entered this body. And how is he inside this body? He is ourself only. I am that Ishvara. I am that Supreme Brahma. But I am ignorant about it. So though this story of creation is being told here, it is not the first creation. Creation, sustenance, and dissolution is a cycle. It keeps happening again and again. So the world is constantly being created, it is sustained and gets dissolved. Infinite jivas are born, they are sustained and they also get dissolved. So this goes on and on. But who are all these jivas? And what is all this creation? Ultimately, all the jivas are that Brahma alone. And this entire creation is Brahma. That is the knowledge being conveyed in this Upanishad as well as in other Upanishads. So Ishvara entered this body from the top of the head, and he resides in these three places of residence. But then what happened after entering? What happened? That is being conveyed now in the next mantra, mantra number 13. Let us chant. Sajato bhutanyabhivyakhyata kim iha anyam vavadishyariti sa etameva purusham brahma tata mam apashyat idam adarsham iti. Sajato bhutanyabhivyakhyata kim iha anyam vavadishyariti sa etameva purusham brahma tatamam apashyat idam adarsham iti. Sajato bhutani abhivyakhyata. So Ishvara, having entered this body, what did he do? He identified with all this matter. He identified with the body, gross body, and the subtle body. That identification happened. Identification means he started considering this body as I, and this Sukshma Sharir as I. And through this body, he looked at this world and considered the world as different from me. Then he looked at other beings and looked at them as different from me. So the whole vision changed. Whole vision underwent total change. There was this wrong notion about Dvaita, about duality, that I am different, other beings are different from me, this world is different from me, and I am this body, I am a man, I am a woman, I am young, I am old, I am happy, I am confused, I am intelligent. All these notions were born because, according to the changes and the appearance of the body, the mind, the senses, and the various experiences, that I, the Atma, who is really Ishvara, who is really that Brahma, started thinking that I am this limited being, the doer of actions, the enjoyer of the results of actions, the knower of this world. So, in this way, the samsara began. See, here one has to understand that the I, the Jiva, is not born at a particular time. I am anadi, beginningless. The infinite Jivas are beginningless. So when the creation happens, the same Jivas who were there in the previous creation are born again. So this we can understand from our own personal experience of deep sleep. So when we are awake, we experience this world. We have our own identity. We have our own name. We have our own desires, ambitions, and experiences of joys and sorrows. Huh? I am a personality. I have my own identity. Then I go to sleep and I dream. So in my dream, the same person who was awake is as though born in a different body, having a different experience. I may have some problems in my waking, but in my dream, I might become free of those problems. I may have difficulty in walking while awake, but I might be running a marathon race in my dream. So I experience myself in a different body and in a different world in my dream. Then, when I am in deep sleep, what happens? I transcend the body, transcend the mind, transcend the world, and I am one with Ishvara without any anything dividing us. I remain there as Ishvara alone. Because I am Ishvara, I remain in deep sleep as Ishvara. Without my mind telling me a wrong story, without my intellect telling me a wrong story. In my waking and dream, I am Ishvara only with wrong stories, with wrong propaganda, with wrong data being fed to me. But in my deep sleep, I remain alone as Ishvara. In Mandukya Upanishad also, this deep sleep entity is indicated as Ishvara, Esha Sarveshvara, Esha Sarvajnaha. He is Sarveshwar, he is Sarvajna. But the mind, the intellect, all the vasanas, and all the ignorance which is there in the intellect is not destroyed. In deep sleep, my Stula Sharir and Sukshma Sharir are not destroyed. So what happens? Because of the karmas, because of all my vasanas, I am born again. Means I wake up again in this body, in this mind, in this intellect, and continues with my experience of samsara. In the same way, when this whole world comes into manifestation, the first person to be born is Hiranyagarbha. But Hiranyagarbha is not born afresh, new. He is the same jiva who had done some tapas in his past life. He wanted to become Hiranyagarbha. So he is born as Hiranyagarbha. Means Bhagwan, when he enters the body of Hiranyagarbha, he starts expressing as the same jiva who had done tapas to become Hiranyagarbha. When Bhagwan enters our body, when I wake up, Bhagwan enters this body, this Stula Sharir and Sukshma Sharir, and he wakes up as I, this person, having his own samskar, having his own vasanas. So this we have to understand. You can contemplate and try to understand this. So sa jato bhutani abhivyakhyata. So when Ishvara entered this body, he identified with the body, with the mind, with the intellect, with all this matter, and started considering them as I. And then the story of samsara began in this manifestation. Means the story of samsara continued. So till here is the story of samsara. How we are that supreme Brahma alone, but we have forgotten our own real identity, and we are living in this body with a false identity. It is like the prince of a kingdom. The prince is taken away in his childhood itself. and is raised in the forest by the forest dwellers. So this person is really a king, but he is unaware of that. And he grows in the forest like a ordinary person and continues to experience the joys and sorrows of being an ordinary person, though he is a king. Similarly, though we are that supreme Brahma, but due to ignorance, we have identified with this body, this mind, and are experiencing the sorrows of the samsara. And no amount of experience of these sorrows as well as the little joys are waking us from this slumber. They are not helping us to come out of this sleep of ignorance. So this goes on and on and on. But that is not the idea of this Upanishad to tell us a sad story of our life. But from this point onwards, the Upanishad also conveys how we can come out of this samsara. And this story, this coming out of this samsara begins with jidnyasa. And that jidnyasa may arise in our antakarana through satsang. Satsang is a most fascinating thing which can turn the direction of our life. Without satsang to give the initial push, we will not be able to come out of this samsara. Like they say in science, the law of inertia. If a body is moving in one direction, it will continue to move in that direction unless it is acted upon by some external force. Similarly, we are moving in this samsara from beginningless time, and we will continue to move in this samsara unless some external force is applied on us, unless some external force changes the direction of my life. And that force comes through satsang. And that satsang happens by Ishvara Kripa. Ishvara Anugrahat Eva Pumsam Advaita Vasana. By Ishvara Kripa alone we have this desire to recognize our Advaita Swarupa. And Ishvara's Kripa also happens when we follow the path of Dharma. Punya Punja Binum Milayina Santa. When we have lots of punya, then we come across a saint, we come across satsang. If we are getting satsang, then know that it is the result of our punya karma and a result of Bhagwan's kripa. So when we come into contact with a saint or we come in contact with some satsang, then the jidnyasa arises in our mind. And what is that jidnyasa? Ki kim iha anyam vavadishyat iti. That who else is there inside Who is there inside? Who is this person? Who am I? As Bhagavan Ramana Maharshi puts it, that question comes, कि who am I? मैं कौन हूँ? किम इह अन्यम वावदिशत iti. Who else is there in this? Means, who is there in this body? In a state of ignorance, we identify with every aspect of our body, our personality. When I'm using my eyes, I feel I am the seer. When I'm using my ears, I say that I am a listener. So I assume hundreds of personality. When there are happy thoughts in my mind, I say I am a happy person. When there are sad thoughts in the mind, I say I am a sad person. So how many persons are there within? If you are a happy person, then you cannot be a sad person. But that personality keeps on changing. I experience that there are so many personalities as though within. In my waking, I am different. In my dream, I am different. In my deep sleep, I don't know who am I. So, kim iha anyam vavadishat iti. That question comes, who am I? Who else is there in this body? What is my identity? What is my nature? That thirst to recognize myself, to know myself. See, we have this mind or the intellect is there, which has got a natural inclination to know. It wants to know. So whatever is seen, whatever is heard, whatever is tasted and all, we want to know. The intellect follows the senses. The senses become aware of this world and intellect wants to know what is this world. And that is how the science and all is progressing, because they are going in the direction of the senses. The senses are seeing this world. So the question is asked, what is this world? But through satsang, the direction gets changed, reversed. There is a U-turn which happens. Instead of asking, what is this world? The question comes, who am I? Who is seeing this world? Who is this I? Who am I? Because the story of the world will be understood later on. First, let me understand who am I. If I don't know myself, what is the use of knowing this world? So who am I? So when this question arises in the mind, and this happens, the jnana arises when our antakarana becomes pure, clean, free from all distractions. Then it wants to know, कि मैं कौन हूँ? Who am I? So such a person then approaches a master, a teacher, and from the teacher he learns. And after learning from the teacher, he comes to recognize his own self as Brahma. So he says, ki sa etam eva purusham Brahma tatamam apashyat. So he recognized this Purusha, this person. Which person? That Ishvara who is described here as the one who created this world, this Purusha who is present in this body, that Ishvara who is present in this body, he realizes that this Purusha who is also Brahma, because he is not confined to this body, he is all pervading, tatamam. He sees that Brahma as his own self. Idam adarsham iti. He sees, he recognizes, he realizes, he gains that aparoksha anubhuti of his own self as Brahma. So the whole journey of a seeker from jnana to self-realization is indicated in just a few sentences, a few words. Shankaracharya ji in his Bhashya, he described this in a little bit more detail. He says, कि स जातः शरीरे प्रविष्टः जीवात्मना भूतानि अभिव्यक्ष्यत् व्याकरोत्, that yet Ishvara, having entered this body, identifies with this material body considers this body as I, and identifies with this body and experiences the joys and sorrows of samsara. But then the turning point, Shankaracharya very dramatically, he conveys here, he says, Sa kadachit param karunikena acharyena atmajnana prabodha krit Shabdikayam Vedanta Mahavakya Bheryam Tat Karna Mule Tadyamanayam Etam Eva Srishtyadi Kartatvena Prakritam Purusham Purishayanam Atmanam Brahma Tatamam Vyaptatamam Paripurnam Akashavat Pratyabhujyata Apashyat. A long sentence. Shankaracharya says that this person, whoever that person may be, a very rare person, he comes across by Bhagwan's, by Ishvara's Kripa, comes across a teacher. Sab kadachit, by some miraculous grace, by some unexplainable kripa, ahaituki kripa, by Bhagwan's kripa, sa kadachit param karunakena, he comes across a teacher who is param karunik, who is supremely compassionate teacher. Because the teacher is rejoicing in his own self. So there is no motivation. There cannot be any motivation for the teacher to go and teach someone. Generally, we do some action in order to gain some joy, some happiness. But the teacher is totally immersed in that supreme happiness. So why will he disturb that happiness to teach someone, to teach a foolish person? But the teacher can do that if there is supreme compassion in that teacher. When the teacher sees the person is suffering, so that compassion arises in the teacher to make that person free of his suffering. And the only way one can become free of all our suffering is by realizing ourself. So teacher, out of his supreme compassion, Parama Karunikena, Acharyena, by that supremely compassionate teacher, what does he do? He wakes us up from our slumber of ignorance. And how does he wake up? Wake us up. Shankaracharya writes, Atmajnana prabodakrit shabdikayam Vedanta mahavakya bherya tat karna mule tadyam manayam. He makes a big noise, big sound with that bugle. With the bugle, he makes a sound in our ears. But what is this bugle? It is Mahavakya, the great Vakya of the Upanishad. What are the great Vakyas? Like Tattvamasi, Ayam Atma Brahma, Prajnanam Brahma, Aham Brahmasmi. These are the Mahavakyas. Sarvam Khalvidam Brahma, which conveys the essential teachings of the Upanishad. So the teacher, as though blows in the ears of this sleeping person, this bugle of Mahavakya. So Atmajnana Prabodakrit Shabdikayam, which creates that Atmajnana. This bugle is such that it generates or this gives rise to that self-knowledge. It creates that self-knowledge. The statements of these Upanishads uttered by the teacher gives rise to that self-knowledge. So Atmajnana Prabodakrit Shabdikayam Vedanta Mahavakya Bheryam Tat Karna Mule Tadyamanayam. So he again and again create that sound of this bugle of Mahavakya. Because this person is asleep, we are all asleep, our eyes may be open. We might be interacting with the world, but spiritually we are asleep. And unless this sound enters the very core of our being, we will not wake up. So the teacher wakes us up from this slumber through the sound of Mahavakya. So Mahavakya Bheryam Tat Karna Mule Tadyamanayam Etameva Shrushtadi Kartatvena Prakatam Purusham Purishayanam Atmanam Brahma. And when that sound enters our system, then we recognize whom we recognize, that Purusha, that Ishvara, who is present in this body. Shrushtadi Kartatvena Prakritam Purusham, this Purusha who is described as the one who was present before creation, as from whom this entire creation has come into being, who is present in this body, who has entered this body, that Purusha, that Ishvara is indicated here as Purusha. And why Purusha? He is called Purusha because Purishayanam, he is in this body but as though asleep. He is as though asleep in this body. Purishayanam. He is present in this body. He is sleeping in this body. This body is like a pura, like a kingdom. So he is asleep. So I recognize that Purusha. Purushana Atmanam. I recognize my own self as this Purusha. Atmanam Purusham. I recognize that I am this Purusha. I am not this body, I am not this mind, I am not this Karta, Bhokta, Jnata. I am this Purusha who is Brahma. Brahma means not confined to this body, who is all pervading, who is big, who is infinite, who is not confined to this body. Brihattamam, who is Brihat. Takarena ekena luptena tatatamam, who is indicated as tatamam here, but one more ta has to be added. So it means tatatamam, pervading everything. Vyaptatamam. This Brahma is not confined only to this body. This Purusha is not confined only to this body. He is Vyaptatamam. He is all pervading. Like space. Paripurnam is complete. There is nothing incomplete in that Purusha. Akashavat, like space. Pratyabhudyatam, apashyat. So he recognizes, means I recognize myself as this Purusha, as this Brahma, who is all pervading like space. So I who was asleep in my slumber of ignorance, I was hearing the bugle entering my system through my ears. By the kripa of my teacher, who is full of compassion, supreme compassion, I come to realize that I am that Purusha, I am this Brahma. I am Brahma. Katham idam Brahma mama atmanaha swarupam. This Brahma is my Atma Swarup, is my own nature, is my own Swarupa. This all pervading Purusha, this all pervading Brahma is my own self. Means I am Brahma. Adarsham drishtavan asmi aho iti. So he comes to recognize this Brahma directly as myself. So I was considering myself as the body, as the mind. So I dropped all these wrong notions. I dropped all these wrong notions and I recognize myself free from all these wrong notions, and that I am Brahma. See, in our deep sleep, we become free of all our wrong notions. Automatically, every time we go to sleep, every time we are in deep sleep, we are free of our wrong notions. We no longer consider ourselves as our body, as our mind, as karta, bhokta, jnata, as a samsari jiva in our deep sleep. We remain there as Ishvara. But potentially our ignorance is not eliminated. Therefore, and in deep sleep, the mind and intellect are asleep. I am not asleep. Ishvara is not asleep. Mind and intellect are asleep. The three states are for the mind, not for the Atma, not for Ishvara. So mind and intellect are asleep, and that is experienced as deep sleep. But again the mind and intellect wakes up because they are not eliminated. They are eliminated only through self-knowledge. So when they wake up, I also feel I have woken up. And I continue identifying with them. But through self knowledge, the intellect gets convinced that I am not this body, not this mind, but I am Brahma. The knowledge happens in the intellect because ignorance is also in the intellect. So when that knowledge happens in the intellect, the wrong notions that I am a doer, knower, enjoyer, etc., I am a limited jiva, gets dropped, get dissolved. And when that gets dissolved, that itself is moksha, that itself is enlightenment. So, idam brahma mama atmanah surupam, this Brahma is my surupa of my atma, myself. So, adarsham drishtavan asmi, this he saw. Saw means directly realized, means gained that aparoksha anubhuti. Aho iti vicharanarthas pluti purvam. So here in this mantra, if you have that book in front of you, that number 3 is written after idam adarsham iti. Number 3. That means that T should be pronounced with 3 times by lengthening it 3 times. So idam adarsham iti. Generally we say iti. But since the 3 is written, we should say idam adarsham iti. So why that lengthening is there? Why that T is lengthened? To convey contemplation, vicharanartha. So, after listening to the teacher, one has to contemplate on what is conveyed by the teacher in that Mahavakya, and that understanding will happen. And with that understanding, we will gain that aparoksha anubhuti and abidance in our own self. So to convey that contemplation followed by meditation, the Shastra is lengthening that sound ti, iti. So this is most fascinating. So the journey of this seeker will come to an end when he gains this self-realization. When he comes to realize that I am Atma, this I am Brahma. I am Brahma. Means I am that Ishvara. I am that Param Purusha. I am that Shuddha Atma. I am that Turiya Atma. That realization should happen. So yasmat idam iti eva yas sakshat aparokshat brahma sarvantaram apashyat parokshena. So since he saw this Brahma directly, as this Brahma and I, direct realization of that Brahma happened. He saw that Brahma as himself. So idam apashyat. He saw it directly. Therefore he is called Indra. So that is being said now in the next mantra, the last mantra of this section and this chapter. So let us chant this mantra. Tasmat idandro nama, idandro havai nama, tam idandram santam indra ityachakshate parokshena paroksha priya iva hi devaha paroksha priya iva hi devaha tasmat idandro nama idandro have nama. Therefore that Brahma is also called idandra, because he is the one who is seen as this by that enlightened person. The enlightened person sees this Brahma as this. This means directly, aproksha anubhuti of that Brahma. So the Brahma, which is realized directly as our own self, is indicated, is named as idandra. Means idandra. Idam means this, idam. Idam means this, dra means seen. This means directly. One who is seen directly. So tasmat idandro nama. Idandro have nama. So that Brahma is called idandra. But one should not take the name of a great devata directly. A great person, we should not take that person's name directly. That is not respectful. Like we don't call our own father by his name. That is not our Indian, our Sanatan tradition. So we, out of reverence, we call him indirectly. Similarly, here Brahma is named as Idandra, but out of respect he is called Indra. So tam Indram santam is called Indra. Indra itya chakshate parokshena. So indirectly he is called Indra. Indra means Idandra, but out of respect he is called Indra. Paroksha priya eva hi devaha. The devtas, they are paroksha priya. They don't like anyone just calling them directly by their name. They want people to show them respect. They will not like anyone addressing them directly by their name. They are paroksha priya. They like to be called indirectly. And that is in our tradition also. We never call our own parents by their name. We call them mom, papa. So, mata, pita, tata, bhai, bhain, chacha, chachi. We don't take their name. That is not respectful. So if devtas also don't like them to be called directly, what to talk about the one who is the devta of the devatas, that Supreme Brahma. So Supreme Brahma is indicated indirectly as Indra. So Paroksha Priya Iva Hi Devaha, Paroksha Priya Iva Hi Devaha. This is repeated twice to indicate the end of this chapter. So thus, this chapter concludes here, and this is a complete chapter, though two more chapters are remaining. But in this chapter itself, the entire message is conveyed that how only that Atma alone was there in the beginning, then everything was created from that Atma, and after creating that Atma entered this world, entered this body also, and remained in this, is present in this body as I, but I am asleep. I do not know that I am that Shuddha Atma, I am that Ishvara, I am asleep. So by the kripa of satsang and by the kripa of a teacher, I hear the Mahavakya and I wake up to my supreme nature that I am Brahma, Aham Brahmasmi. I wake up from my slumber into this blissful enlightenment. Okay? So through these pravachans also, constant, the bugle is being played here of Mahavakya for you, for all of you to wake up, for all of us to wake up from this slumber of ignorance. So with Ishvara's kripa, all this will happen soon. May we all wake up to our own supreme nature. Hari Om Tat Sat. We will conclude now with a prayer. So we will continue with this on Monday, the other chapters, which are also very beautiful and they have a connection. So till then, you take care, be happy, stay peaceful, healthy, do your work, do your sadhana. Listen to the pravachan again and contemplate on what is conveyed. Okay? And see you on Monday. Hari Om. Shri Ram Jaya Ram Jaya Jaya Ram. 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 Jaya Jaya Ram. Jaya Jaya Ram. Bole Siya Ramchandra Bhagwan ki Jai. Om Purnamada Purnamidam Purnat Purnamadachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnamevavashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Hari Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Hari Om.